instead of first asking himself, what right has my prompter to ask me to prove it? But Jesus must do now what he will later teach his disciples to do to pray. Give us this day our daily bread. To strive for God's kingdom rather than food and clothing. We can imagine the devil saying to us, if you are the boss, if you are the one who is supposed to, if you are my friend, if you are a good mother, if you are a patriot, if you are an expert, if you're a team player, if you really believe, even if you love the Lord, listen carefully to what follows. If it is from the devil, it will be wrapped up in treachery. Note that each of these is a point of strength, that is, being the boss or a good mother, rather than a point of weakness. The devil often attacks the high wall that we thought was unnecessary to guard. What does that mean? He pops up where you don't expect him. In Luke, the devil says, command this stone to become a loaf of bread, suggesting that Jesus should relieve his own hunger. In Luke's account, the appeal is more basic, more personal. While the appeal to compassion is strong, the appeal to self is often stronger, isn't it? People, and Jesus as human, have a strong will to survive. It is possible to make a good case for personal survival. Flight attendants are taught to ensure their personal survival in a crash so that they will be alive to help surviving passengers. Parents need to survive to care for their children. Jesus needed to survive so that he could carry out his ministry. Now note that the first temptation seems so insignificant. What can be the harm of one loaf of bread, for crying out loud? It will strengthen Jesus for ministry. Certainly nobody will miss one stone from the many that are carpeting this desert out here. The second and third temptations are dramatic, but the power of the first temptation lies in its subtlety. Jesus responds, it is written, one does not live by bread alone. The quotation is from Deuteronomy 8:3, which reads in full, he humbled you by letting you hunger, then by feeding you with manna, with which neither you nor your ancestors were acquainted, in order to make you understand that one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Note the connection between manna, Israel's bread in the wilderness, and the bread with which the devil tempts Jesus in the wilderness. Israel's need for bread was secondary to Israel's need to understand that God gives bread. Jesus, because he understands that fact, can resist the temptation to take matters into his own hands. Now, the second temptation tempts Jesus to worship the devil, a false god, accomplish a good end, story and glory and authority by evil means, worshiping the devil. Jesus has come for glory and authority, but he will obtain them by being lifted up on a cross, not by kneeling before the evil one. His glory and authority comes from God, not Satan. And we too are tempted to accomplish good ends by evil means. Tobacco companies sponsor charities to legitimize their death-dealing business. State governments find it easier to win support for lotteries than for school taxes. Casinos provide jobs for Native Americans but prey on vulnerable people. Executives enhance stockholder profits and their own bonuses by firing loyal employees. Schools promote self-esteem by passing students to grades for which they are unprepared. Students pass tests by cheating. Preachers fill pews by letting people hear what they want to hear instead of calling them to cross-bearing. We are all tempted to accomplish good ends by bad means. The devil led him up and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. The vision is of an empire with suzerainty over kingdoms, which in turn control cities, exactly what Luke's perception is of, like the Roman imperial arrangements. Satan says, to you, Jesus, I will give their glory and all this authority. This is the very first mention of authority in this gospel, but the issue of authority will surface again and again. Jesus will astound the people by teaching with authority. Jesus will command unclean spirits with authority, and they will obey. The Son of Man will have authority to forgive sins. A centurion, a man set under authority, will acknowledge Jesus' authority. Jesus will give the disciples authority over demons and to tread on snakes, scorpions,